Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here are today's top stories. Hurricane Beryl makes its way through the Caribbean islands towards Jamaica. More on the forecast. Former President Trump's lawyers are reportedly asking for the conviction to be set aside. The judge for his New York case has postponed the sentencing date. Housing affordability and blue-collar work. Some in San Francisco say if you build it, you should be able to live in it. First up, Hurricane Beryl is making its way through the Caribbean islands, downing power lines and bringing floods. More about its path. Hurricane Beryl is now a Category 5 storm as it makes its way through the Caribbean islands. The hurricane is downing power lines, bringing floods, and has reportedly killed 2 people. Reports say one person was killed in Grenada, where the storm made landfall yesterday. Another fatality was reported in St. Vincent. The National Hurricane Center forecasts the storm will start losing intensity over the next few days, but still be hurricane strength through Friday. Beryl will pass near Jamaica on Wednesday, the Cayman Islands on Thursday, and Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula on Friday. It's expected to bring life-threatening winds and storm surges to Jamaica. A hurricane warning is in effect for the nation. A major update on former President Trump's legal cases. The judge delays Trump's sentencing in the New York criminal case to consider the Supreme Court ruling on immunity. Trump's lawyers have indicated that they want Judge Juan Merchan to toss out Trump's felony conviction on 34 counts. Now, the hearing previously scheduled for July 11th will be delayed until at least September 18th. The Education Department will now be able to lower monthly payments on millions of student loans. A federal appeals court overturned a block on President Biden's plan to ease student debt. Biden's rule will lower monthly payments from 10% of borrowers' discretionary income to 5%, potentially affecting millions of borrowers. Federal judges in Kansas and Missouri last week blocked the rule, which was supposed to take effect yesterday, but an appeals court is giving Biden's plan the go-ahead. The appeals court's decision does not affect another injunction in Missouri, which prevents the Education Department from forgiving some outstanding loan amounts. This injunction halted Biden's loan forgiveness program, in which some 150,000 people have already had their loans canceled. Police report at least 87 people were killed by a stampede at a religious gathering in northern India today. The village is about 100 miles southeast of New Delhi, India's capital. About 60 people died on location and 27 more people died after being transported to the hospital. A local official just told an Indian news outlet that 107 people were killed. That number is still not yet confirmed. Initial reports indicated that over 15,000 people had gathered for the event, 3 times the approved amount. The crowd was reportedly rushing to leave a makeshift tent structure. Video of the aftermath shows that the tent had collapsed. The Supreme Court ruled that yesterday U.S. presidents have absolute immunity for actions they take in their official capacity. It's an argument former President Trump's lawyers made during his New York criminal trial. Now they are reportedly asking for Trump's conviction to be set aside.
The Supreme Court Monday ruled that a former president has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct within his constitutional authority. The Supreme Court majority rejected Trump's broad claim of immunity. It said he can be held criminally responsible for unofficial conduct, even if he was in office at the time. Former President Trump's lawyer sent a letter to Manhattan Judge Juan Merchan, which was obtained by the Associated Press. The letter requests that Trump's conviction in his New York criminal case be set aside and sentencing delayed. In an interview with The Source, Trump lawyer Will Scharf said Trump deserves a new trial.
So what we have in New York is a situation where a substantial number of official acts of the presidency, things that we believe are official acts, were used as evidence to support the charges in that New York trial. We believe that that corrupts that trial, that indicates that that jury verdict needs to be overturned.
But the Supreme Court ruling Monday stems primarily from federal charges against Trump, namely that he allegedly conspired to defraud the government and obstructed an official proceeding. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote Monday in the majority opinion, "The nature of that power requires that a former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office, at least with respect to the president's exercise of his core constitutional powers. This immunity must be absolute." President Biden spoke out against the decision. He said the Supreme Court's decision fundamentally changed one of the founding principles of the United States, equality before the law.
For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do.
Biden said the public had a right to know Trump's alleged role in the events of January 6, 2021. But the Supreme Court sent the case back to lower courts. They will now decide which of Trump's alleged actions were official and therefore covered by presidential immunity. This means a trial will be unlikely until after the November election.
Now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior.
Liberal Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the court allowed a president to become a, quote, king above the law. She called the decision utterly indefensible. She was joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Chief Justice John Roberts responded to the minority, writing, "As for the dissents, they strike a tone of chilling doom that is wholly disproportionate to what the court actually does today."
President Biden and former President Trump had their first debate last Thursday. NTD's BJ King took to the streets to ask people what they thought about the event.
The first presidential debate aired Thursday, where President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump argued which one of them Americans should vote for this November. We're here on the street talking to everyday citizens about if they saw the debate and if it influenced their views. One topic consistently raised was people's concern about Biden's health.
I don't think he could last 4 more years in the office because of his inability to have a thought, because he stopped many times, and that's scary. And what if some disaster's happening during, a crisis happens in the United States? Is he going to be able to make sound decisions?
However, most people felt unsatisfied with both Trump and Biden as candidates.
To me, at this point, I'm just looking at the vice presidents, who they are going to be.
But I just think it was just an unfair setup last night. And I think, if the public hasn't already decided, I think that last night might have changed their minds.
One young man who hadn't watched the televised event felt that watching the next round would help develop his voting decisions this coming election. Are you going to be voting this November for who's going to be president?
I am thinking about it because, I haven't. I do have, I have my family telling me, it is my ancestors fought for this privilege. So he said, why not, return the favor in doing so.
The Biden and Trump campaigns have agreed to one more debate, which will be hosted by ABC News on September 10th. BJ Kang, NTD News, California.
Not everyone can afford homes, especially in California. People who build the homes can't afford them either. NTD speaks with some local leaders in San Francisco to find out their thoughts on the city.
Some people are unhappy with how their city's situation is, such as the case with San Francisco and its homelessness and housing crisis.
It's cruel to see people living on the streets, so we are all for building housing for those individuals and getting them off the streets. And we just want to make sure that our building trades workers don't get left out when they're building that house. Our building trades workers should be building that housing, and those jobs shouldn't be shipped out to other parts of the state or the country or the world.
Former interim mayor Mark Farrell says the city needs much change and says he's eyeing to focus on labor.
First of all, to focus on public safety and cleaning up the streets. When you do that, you create an environment where companies and employees might want to come back.
Tax credits are currently available for certain businesses that open physical locations. To boost economic growth, Farrell pointed to tax incentives from 2010.
To actually encourage companies to relocate back to San Francisco, to encourage employers to mandate that their employees come to work at least 4 days a week.
In addition to property, residents also complained about the standard of living.
What I hear from merchants and residents in Chinatown every single day, we need public safety. We need to clean up the streets. We need to make sure the drug crisis isn't spilling out into every single neighborhood. And we actually address it and make a difference inside of City Hall.
This year, crime has become a top issue in the state, with lawmakers introducing bills to curb crime rates. On Monday, California's governor announced new measures to tackle theft and fentanyl narcotics. David Lamb, NTD News.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. The U.S. and Panama signed a deal to curb migration through the Darien Gap. More on the agreement. 200 missing children found as a result of a 6-week operation by the US Marshal Service. Independence Day is nearing, and we have spotlighted some of the top places in the nation to celebrate. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. The U.S. and Panama have signed an immigration deal that aims to close the Darien Gap. The treacherous jungle passage connects Colombia and Panama and is a key route for migrants hoping to reach the U.S. Panama's new president was sworn in yesterday, and he said Panama will no longer be a transit country for illegal immigration. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the immigration deal.
Panama's new president, Jose Raul Mulino, took office on Monday promising to curb illegal immigration.
I won't allow Panama to be an open path for thousands of people who enter our country illegally, supported by an international organization related to drug trafficking and human trafficking.
Mulino's new foreign minister signed a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. after the address. The U.S. agreed to cover the cost of repatriating migrants who enter Panama illegally in the deal. The memorandum also says the U.S. would support Panama with equipment, transportation, and logistics to enforce immigration laws. Panama's government says the memorandum allows closing off illegal immigration through the Darien Gap. The mountainous rainforest region connects South and Central America and is a dangerous route for migrants hoping to reach the U.S. Panama's National Migration Service says more than 500,000 people crossed the corridor last year, most from Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and China. This year, more than 190,000 people have already crossed. Mulino also promised Monday to boost job and economic growth while addressing Panama's debt. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Hundreds of missing children have been found across the U.S. as part of a 6-week national operation by the US Marshal Service. NTD's Christina Corona has more details on the story.
Operation We Will Find You Too spanned from May 20th to June 24th, marking the second of its kind. According to the Department of Justice, Operation We Will Find You Too led to the recovery and removal of 123 children from dangerous situations. An additional 77 missing children were located and found to be in safe locations, as verified by law enforcement or child welfare agencies. Among the 200 children found, 173 were endangered runaways, 25 were considered otherwise missing, 1 was a family abduction, and 1 was a non-family abduction. The youngest child recovered was 5 months old. 14 children were found outside the city where they went missing, and 57% of the missing children recovered were located within 7 days of United States Marshal Service involvement. U.S. Marshal Service Director Ronald Davis said in a statement Monday, "Whenever a child is missing, whether we cannot explain how they went missing, whether we think it was a family abduction, or whether it's a runaway, they are at risk of being in danger and at risk of being trafficked, at risk of being hurt." The operation took place in cities in Arizona, California, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, New York, and Oregon. Officials report that the Phoenix area saw the highest number of children rescued during the 6-week operation. However, they acknowledge that these rescues are just scratching the surface. Christina Corona, NTD News.
A national divide is emerging among states over whether to track sales by gun stores. Proponents say implementing it will help flag suspicious gun-related purchases to potentially avert mass shootings and other crimes. Opponents say it could lead to unwanted suspicion for gun buyers who have not done anything wrong.
A new California law taking effect July 1st will require credit card networks to provide banks with special retail codes to assign to gun stores. Advocates hope it will help flag suspicious purchases and avert mass shootings. By contrast, new laws taking effect in Georgia, Iowa, Tennessee, and Wyoming will prohibit the use of special gun shop codes in financial transactions.
What we're advocating for with this code is closing one of those exemptions where the gun industry is not treated like every other business, even though it should be.
Viewed most benignly, this is an effort to use the private sector to do an end run around the prohibition on the federal government's building of a registry of gun owners.
A total of 17 states have now passed some sort of limits on category codes for gun retailers. California is joined by Colorado and New York. The conflicting laws highlight what's quietly emerged as one of the nation's newest gun policy debates, dividing state capitals along familiar partisan lines. Some Democratic lawmakers and gun control activists hope the new retail tracking code will help financial institutions flag suspicious gun-related purchases for law enforcement agencies. But many Republican lawmakers and gun rights activists fear the new retail codes could lead to unwarranted suspicion of gun buyers who have done nothing wrong.
This is a normal, protected, lawful activity, and to carve it out as something that needs to be identified and data mined for evil really sets a very bad tone for how gun ownership, lawful gun ownership, is viewed, while simultaneously adding zero predictive value in its stated purpose of detecting patterns that mass shooters may engage in.
Eldred says the new merchant code also could lead more people to buy guns with cash instead of credit in order to protect their privacy. Even with a firearms store code, it won't be possible to know whether a particular sale is for a rifle, ammunition, storage safe, or some other product, such as hunting apparel.
The 4th of July is only days away, and Wallet Hub evaluated the 100 largest of the U.S. cities to determine where you can have the most holiday fun on a budget. NTD's Christina Corona highlights some of the best and worst cities to celebrate the holiday.
With 4th of July approaching, Wallet Hub surveyed some of the best places in the nation to celebrate our independence. Wallet Hub's analysis includes 18 key metrics, such as average beer and wine prices, the length of fireworks shows, and the 4th of July weather forecast. Top 5 cities for 4th of July celebrations are Los Angeles, California, New York, New York, Seattle, Washington, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. Wallet Hub named Los Angeles the best city for 4th of July celebrations, partly due to its high number of party supply stores per capita. The analysis showed Los Angeles residents searched Google for terms related to July 4th more than people in most other cities. New York is the second best city for Independence Day celebrations and the third most popular travel destination. It also has the most affordable 4.5-star restaurants, perfect for those not hosting barbecues or just visiting. Seattle ranks as the third best city for July 4th celebrations, featuring the third longest fireworks display among the 100 cities studied. Laredo, Texas, Aurora, Colorado, and Birmingham, Alabama rank last on the list for 4th of July celebrations, with Birmingham, Alabama having the highest DUI-related fatalities per capita. We asked Los Angeles residents what their holiday plans are.
My sister is actually in a show that's opening on the 4th, so I'll be there with her. It's called The Lincolns of Springfield, about Abraham Lincoln, so it's only fair that they open on the 4th of July.
So I'm actually a singer-songwriter, and I'm playing at this party that my friends are putting on, so that'll be kind of fun.
Whether you're having a backyard barbecue, attending a parade, or watching the fireworks, have a safe 4th of July holiday. Christina Corona, NTD News, Los Angeles.
With teammates younger than his son, Andy McDonald prepares for an Olympic debut as the oldest, the skateboarder in Paris. But the 50-year-old reckons he can still teach them a trick or two.
Andy McDonald was announced Monday as a teammate to world champions Sky Brown, age 15, and Lola Tambling, 16. The first male skateboarder to represent Britain at a Games is unfazed by the age gap, but amazed to have gotten so far.
It feels pretty surreal. It was a long shot for me to get to this point. I never thought that I would actually qualify for the Games when I started this process 2.5 years ago.
He secured his berth at the last chance in a qualifier in Budapest last week. McDonald feels he has something to offer, can learn something in return.
I have an advantage in that I have obviously much more experience in skating in competition and what it takes to mentally prepare, physically prepare.
He is also a father of 2 daughters and a son. His daily routine has been one of school runs, homework, and after-class activities, as well as skateboarding.
From the get-go, it was always like, can you do this? Can you be an Olympic athlete and still be the dad and like the most important stuff, the most important thing is raising my kids. So I've been able to do both. So that's, for me, the biggest accomplishment.
McDonald is a record holder for most X Games medals in vert skateboarding, competing with American greats Tony Hawk and Shaun White.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. A growing threat in America's backyard. Satellite images show Cuba expanding spy facilities, and the new report says they could serve as Beijing's ears if the regime gets a hold of them. More on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.